Life is a collection of random occurrences.
I niegdzie jest tam, kiedyś, tam, tylko tu i teraz.
Holy Christ, what are we doing here again? What the hell are you thinking, man?
I don't know. I take no responsibility over the proceedings. We are once again back in Poland and once again dealing with Catholicism. Of all goddamn things.
I like to pick my targets well. Tonight, indeed, we return to Poland. Without a guest. This time, this is a film by Jan Komasa. We haven't touched on Jan Komasa before, but he might be just the hottest director in Poland right now, and somewhat in the international circles every now and then. Have you seen any films from Jan Komasa, Henrik?
Once again, we are dealing with Polish film industry, which by default means that this is your show. No, I have not. I have no experience with Komasa, and I also have no experience with the actors of the film.
Before we dive in, what's the general mood of the night? How is it going in the Santa Claus city?
Well, Santa Claus is most definitely off and cancelled at this point. Turned out that the bearded fuck had also contracted COVID-19, and well, if the signs are correct, Christmas will be cancelled. Thank God.
Well, I hope the reindeers opened the bars for you already.
yeah, no chance in hell.
In lively old Poland, they opened the bars. You don't need to wear the mask to drink, but it's not really the same thing.
I'm fairly certain that in lively old Poland, they never even closed the bars.
You'd be surprised. I'm Karri. I studied media. If you didn't know, he's Henrik. He studies art. This is what the show is about. We review mostly international films every week here for your listening pleasure. We're two, well, frankly, crazy Finns, and we met a long time ago originally, just decided that the best idea in the world is to put up a film podcast. And we've been stuck here ever since.
In international film podcast where you first review a bunch of films from either from Italian talking countries or French talking countries, and then you shift into Slavic language countries, which means that, well, give us one or two more episodes, and most likely the theme song of the podcast has turned into a hard bass remix.
Don't worry, the Indian musicals are right around the corner. We still haven't touched on India, we still haven't touched on a lot of places. Where would you like to travel? We have been to quite a lot of places, but China we could get into. We haven't had an actual Chinese film ever here yet.
No, we have dealt with both Koreas and Japan.
Yeah, and Hong Kong.
And Hong Kong. Which is technically and officially, as God allows it, a part of China. No. So we have also dealt with China.
Never happened, no. All right, this podcast is sponsored by Jesus Christ himself, since he has nothing better to do at the moment. If you prefer things this way, you can find us also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. And we have, of course, the quite new website, theflicklab.com. But I'm pretty sure that you can listen to us in a more easier fashion by just going to your favorite podcast player, whatever it would be Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever floats your boat. I don't really know. But why to watch this film now, Henrik?
I'm guessing this is some kind of a recuperation on your behalf of the Don Camillo episode.
This is also the day of Corpus Christi when this episode comes out, and It just so happens that the film's name is Corpus Christi, so finally we have something topical here. You can't really complain.
It took almost 2 years, but we managed to be topical.
This is also a good episode reminder for Henrik to see what are the consequences of becoming a fake priest.
I detest your notion. I'm not a fake priest. It's a legally binding document.
Well, you almost were. What's your history with this film? Might be kind of short-lived.
Extremely short-lived. Seen it once for this podcast.
Yeah, I bought it a while back out of curiosity since I knew some of the earlier works of the director and because of this nomination for the Academy Awards and the 92nd Academies and because of the interesting themes, frankly. I believe this is also something that Henrik would really like to tackle and dive into. So,
I must confess, I was somewhat surprised to see that you actually recommended that we watch this specific film. Well, we have been talking about religion and more specifically about Christianity and Christian faith, and the sentiments have been somewhat critical in the past. There has been words have been said, so to speak, and the notion I've always gotten from your end is that you are quite critical of Christianity, and today's film, on the other hand, at least I feel so, actually paints a pretty warm and pretty kind of a pretty embracing light about religion, and more specifically about Catholicism.
It could go either way. This is kind of film that has religion all over it, but even as a non-religious person, you can very much enjoy it. And the themes that are surrounding it are still universal. And I found that the film, on occasions, actually quite many occasions, did try to challenge the status quo that is in the village and the kind of uptight approach to church or certain relationships, perhaps.
Certain, but most definitely not all. Like, I would say, spoilers to the following discussions, but I would say that today's film, it is critical of some aspects of Catholicism, but it's not critical of Catholicism itself.
Yeah. This is a very thought-provoking film. You can find several directions here. I found a lot of parallels also to my own life here, because since I always wanted to LARP, but in a serious way, like depicted here, not like Henrik does it, dressed in the forest as a Xena, the warrior princess.
Yelling lightning bolt.
And riding a cardboard horse.
Yeah, I was certain that this was a movie that reminded you of your days back in the juvenile penitentiary and that one time when you dressed up as a priest.
I'm not confessing anything.
No, back in those days, people confessed to you.
I'm not in the business of confession. It's the universe of this film. So, film overview. This is, as stated, directed by this famous Polish director Jan Komasa, written by Mateusz Pacewicz with some consultation help from Krzysztof Rak. The director read the script and wanted to add some more emphasis to the backstory for Daniel in the form of his troubled past. The production met with controversy also, as there was a man who came forward and claimed that the movie was based on his real-life experiences, which the producers then, after ignoring him for some time, claimed that it was not. Interestingly, the writer Mateusz Pacewicz and others have revealed that the fraud in priesthood is fairly common phenomena in Poland, at least now, and that every couple of months a new case is discovered. I believe the director himself mostly pointed that out. And this is apparently a phenomena about the need of the underprivileged to gain social status and respect. Is that what you were doing,
Fuck you, man.
Oh my god.
Fucking shots fired.
I'm in a specific mood today and I'm going to take all the joy out of it. Right. Director Jan Komasa. So it's an artistic family. Once again, his parents and siblings are in the entertainment industry. And his father played a role in Schindler's List. Jan Komasa got inspired by that, watching the film crew there and meeting Steven Spielberg even, which led to him to consider filmmaking as a career path. Unsurprisingly, he went and graduated from the famous National Film School of Łódź, a little outside of Warsaw, the big city next to Warsaw, and went on to win the third place with his short film at Cannes Film Festival in a particular category, and more wins later followed with another short film around several film festivals, and the rest is history. He has directed 4 feature films. Out of these I have seen 3, and Warsaw 44 might be his most successful film to date. It depicts the struggles and fighting of the Warsaw Uprising during the Second World War. It's really an interesting film stylistically. You see kind of an extreme slow motion, lots of digital effects, kind of the old world of filmmaking perhaps meeting with the Matrix era of filmmaking. You know, there's like jumps from the side.
So put it in other terms, it's 300 minus the male nudity.
Pretty much. Corpus Christi, of course, is the film that we're tackling today. And his latest film is The Hater. It's about a law student who gets into all sorts of trouble, somehow manages to become an employee of a PR company, which plays political games against certain opponents. And the film shows how far-reaching the consequences of political games can be. And I thought it might be sending some very strong opinions on the current state of politics in Poland. I'm not quite sure on that, but this film was hit by the COVID-19. It came to theaters, and 6 days later, after the premiere, it was taken out because all the cinemas were shut here in Poland. But I was fortunate enough to see it before it was shut down. Now, just about 2 weeks ago, we heard that Netflix has acquired the rights to the film, and the film will be released globally in July, except in Poland.
Because that's how logic operates.
Damn those film rights. And his first film was A Suicide Room, and it's kind of some kind of a spiritual sequel, or the first part of Sala Samobuitsuv series, Suicide Room being the first and The Hater the second part. In The Suicide Room, it was about this gay guy who is struggling with his identity and you know, that kind of a film. Regarding the awards of tonight's film, it won 11 Polish Academy Awards, including the Best Film category, Best Director, Best Actor, Best. It also won several other domestic awards. And at the Chicago International Film Festival and Stockholm International Film Festival, Bartosz Bielenia, the lead actor, won the Best Actor accolade. Alrighty then. That is the facts, ma'am. Anything else before we dive in?
No, let's just dive straight in.
Who knows? I might do something else as well. Since my brain is on overdrive, I'm trying to combine all the 4 Komasa movies lately and their themes, and I think I'd, love to make with you, Henrik, a film out of it. There would be a fake gay priest during the Second World War who finds love from a suicidal gay inmate, and together they would join the Warsaw Uprising and the Matrix. And then when the communists take over, the gay couple makes the Communist Party self-destruct by an effective PR campaign, which is there to defame, denigrate the party, leading to its immediate collapse in the early 1950s. So it's a win-win end result for everybody. Poland would get its independence really quick. They would celebrate the homosexuals as no else than gods. And Jan Komasa would have directed the first Matrix.
That sounds like a dumpster fire and a clusterfuck, or both combined.
This collaboration is going nowhere.
So, of course, I'm in.
All right, well, good. What about, during the midsummer? No, I think
Why the fuck not? Really? Really? Like, I have no excuses why we couldn't try it. I can even try to write the script for the film, seeing how I actually have no fucking background information about goddamn Poland.
Well, then it would give like fresh, refreshing aspect to the script. A little artistic freedom.
It would be like Coriolanus. It would take place in a place calling itself Poland.
But we would be completely banned from coming to Poland ever again in our lives.
Wouldn't be a problem for me.
Yeah, that's okay probably for me, because before this episode comes out, I just might be out of the country already.
What they're already sick of you. You have been there, what?
5 years.
5 years?
Yeah.
5 years, yeah.
I think I've been keeping a low profile, but if somebody ever from Poland happens to listen to these episodes about Polish movies, I'm surprised that it has taken this long, that the Policja hasn't been knocking on my door. Filming locations. So this was filmed in the very, very southern parts of Poland, in the southeast small town of Jasliska, in the Carpathian Mountains region, in the Podkarpackie voivodeship. We start the film with the workstead Henrik. Our hero Daniel is helping with the abuse of a kid. Now let me point my finger already. Like, Daniel is the least believable bully in the entire planet.
Well, he's a bully who looks like he's about to start to cry at any given minute.
Hey, yeah, especially when there's beautiful music playing. But why is Daniel acting like this way? Is it because he's trying to just play along, not to get into trouble with the actual bullies?
Pretty much, yeah. Like, Daniel mostly, when it comes to juvenile penitentiary scenes in the film, Daniel is mostly just a patsy or someone who does the crowd work. Like, for example, in the opening bullying scene. Well, essentially, Daniel himself doesn't take any direct part in the act of bullying. He's just keeping eye at the door, and preparing to give the signal to the actual police once the teacher returns back to the premises.
Yep. Henrik, did you ever play Super Mario 64?
Oh, exactly once or twice. I have like hour or hour and a half combined with that game.
Okay, I owned it. I was asking for Sega Saturn for Christmas, and then I saw that Nintendo 64 is coming out and it has the Super Mario 64. Then I went to my dad like, Dad, I want also Nintendo 64. And I was like, oh, come on, get the fuck out of here. And then one day after school, it just was there. Because
okay, did that game also had juvenile kids having their pants put on around their ankles?
Rhetorically speaking, yeah, there is this lava level. What was it again? And Mario had to fight these ball-shaped monsters that are actually bombs. Bob-bombs they were called, and they were called bullies, the big bullies. And that's the time that I learned the word bully in English language, ladies and gentlemen. Really important.
So bullies have big balls.
That's
see, kids, this is why Nintendo not even once.
Oh my, that's what you learn from an Italian plumber stuck in a Nintendo Japanese video game.
That sounds like a synopsis for a porn film. we have an Italian plumber. There's a princess, there's a dungeon, and the whole thing is made by Japanese.
But yeah, we're in the Catholic Youth Correctional Facility. There's a lot of emotions, pain, rage, violence. Then we get to this. Would you describe it as a mass? You know, there's the priest talking. Well, you should know.
Fucking everybody's a comedic today.
But yeah, the priest says, Priest Tomasz, that they are not here to pray mechanically. Nobody should be. The star actor, Daniel, really kind of does look like the priest. He keeps smiling and they have this connection going on. And anger, fear, hurt are the thematics. Then Daniel sings the Lord is my shepherd in front of them. And there's a close-up on the guy with a tattoo on his neck who will be a problem later. This David Fincher, what is this guy's name? Spincher, Slincher, Tincher.
Spincher, something.
Yeah, that guy. Scene with the bonus in canteen. Bonus is not something that they collect daily as like daily money, but it's a guy
No, Bonus is a well-known cigarette brand.
That too.
Once again we are dealing with the juveniles, and everybody's name is completely goddamn retarded. Like you have Bonus, you have Coca-Cola, and somewhere around the mess hall you have also Slay Snooze.
And Pampers.
But
this guy, Bonus, is just trying to stir shit. He's not happy that Daniel has less time left in the facility, as I understand it. And this is apparently, we don't know really their history. This is something that they could have built a little bit more, because it just happens that they have some kind of problem which is not opened up. But this...
It's implied later on in the film that Daniel is doing time for murder, which most likely, or once again, it's implied that the murder was gang-related. Like, Daniel has killed someone to earn quote-unquote gang credit. And that someone who Daniel has killed would have been Bonus's brother. So there would be this kind of a blood feud going on between Bonus and Daniel, where Bonus feels that he has to avenge his brother.
Whose name is Bingo.
Whose name is Bingo, and is never actually properly introduced as a background character to the film. In fact, Daniel's whole crime for what he's doing time for, and which is supposed to be a major hindrance to Daniel, and something that labels Daniel for the rest of his life as a fuck-up, it's something that is brought up exactly once in the film and then hinted at for the second time.
Here we have Priest giving his number to Daniel, as Daniel is about to go to the sawmill, which is a little bit a bus ride away. Priest also shares with him that his criminal history is a disqualifier for becoming a priest. Not sure where this exactly was mentioned, but it's somewhere there. The film establishes the personal issues of Daniel. He likes to party hard, takes drugs, but tries to follow his calling throughout the film. It's kind of a coming-of story, kind of between two characters, a transitional character and a film, wouldn't you say?
It is that. It's also something that I found to be surprisingly close to the Dead Poets Society, which we have covered earlier. Like there is a similar dynamic, the enlightened individual against stuck-up and harsh institution, and that individual kind of triumphing over the institution at the end.
Yeah, and in kind of both films, the lead character never really gets what he wants, as far as I now remember.
No, in both cases, the institution at least formally wins over the individual. The individual manages to kind of heal the institution from within. In Dead Poets, the teacher manages to help his students to open up and kind of find themselves. Something that would have been impossible for them had it not been for the teacher, had the students just followed the institution's route of doing things. And in Corpus Christi, Daniel, in the end, manages to kind of heal the wound, the emotional scar that lies within the town itself, and manages to make the townspeople accept each other once more. This way, building a more healthy town, more healthy institution. But in both films, eventually the enlightened individual is driven out from the institution. The Robin Williams teacher is being kicked out, and Daniel ends up being taken back to the juvenile correction facility.
Yeah, it's the same story here. Enlightened person. I do believe that Daniel does learn something through this experience, but it's not turning to his advantage, at least in the end of the film.
Well, it might turn into his advantage in an emotional way. It's hard to say because the film is open-ended. You don't really know how life is going to play out for Daniel after the end credits, and you don't really know what happens to Daniel himself during the final scene of the film. But you can kind of read it the way that Daniel somehow manages to shed off his status as a juvenile scumbag and finds his self-worth, realizes that he can actually have a positive effect on his surroundings and the people around him, and perhaps, like said, very open-ended, but perhaps there is a chance that at the end of the film Daniel either escapes the juvenile correctional facility or just find some kind of a better future awaiting for him once he's being processed and released from the institution. It's hard to say. Daniel runs towards to something. What that something is never actually shown.
We can discuss it if there's something more at the end of the film, but essentially, yeah, the film comes full circle by the end. Let's talk a little bit about Bartosz Bielenia. He is also a stage actor and indeed in 2020 won the Shooting Star Award for the Best Young European Actor. Found some reviews that said, quote, resembling a male skeletal Angelina Jolie. Okay. Humorously injecting New Testament thinking. From AshevilleMovies.com, this one. Daniel is a character that I believe wants to be respected by the society and wants to find his place. And this is the journey. We will come back to the other actors shortly. But there's a party going on, drinking, drugs, sex, sort of kind of graphical, well, normal level of graphical in Poland. And then hits a guy in the face for unknown reason. Or did you find the reason?
The guy was trying to grab the priest's collar that Daniel has stolen, and Daniel was kind of defending the collar, his priest's shirt.
Daniel now gets to the bus. He's asked to put the smoke out by the police, or I think it's rather the toy police, Straż Miejska. This kind of a secondary police. I think we don't have anything like that in Finland. Anyway, I call it the toy police.
No, we only have the official beaks.
He says that he can detect you scum anywhere. And I feel that this is something defining here that changes his course from going to the sawmill and instead goes to being a priest. He wants to be something, prove his worth. He arrives to the town, sees a picture memorial for the victims of something that happened, and later we find out that these are the victims of a two-vehicle collision, right? Two cars collide.
Yup.
This event then traumatized the town, and it's a symbol for the 2010 Smolensk air disaster in which 96 people were killed, and among many Polish politicians, including the president Lech Kaczynski and his wife. Any story times about Smolensk air disaster, or do you want me to go ahead with that?
Yeah, please tell me more. Never heard about that incident.
Okay, so this is something that really shocked Poland. This is the Smolensk air disaster that was extremely traumatic for the Polish society. Lech Kaczynski, his identical twin brother Jarosław Kaczynski, is also the current leader of the leading political party in Poland called Law and Justice that you might know from the news. He's seen as the most influential politician in Poland, and there's a lot of rumors swirling around this guy, and I don't want to spend too much time on politics on this podcast, for God's sakes, but let's just say that he's often considered as the de facto leader of Poland, whose influence of power regularly overruns everyone inside his party, really. He could be even described as the leader of a puppet party, if you will, to be quite brutally honest in this podcast. But the point being, this flight, Smolensk air disaster, this plane was going to the memorial site in Katyn in modern-day Russia. And on the way there, something happened and the plane caught up in flames and 96 people died, including the president of Poland and the wife and several politicians. And of course, this started a lot of heavy emotions towards the Russians. First of all, they weren't willing to give the parts of the plane to inspections to Poland. And there were a lot of kind of questionable parts in the... Nobody was kind of sure what happened on that flight. And Poland started to essentially blame Russia. And I think it changed the course of Polish politics also for the more rougher direction internationally. And I think for the most part, Poland is kind of alone in this situation in a sense that they have their own beliefs of what happened. At least some of them up there do. And many from the outside are looking like this is something that just should be let go at this point because it's not going anywhere.
So it was never officially concluded, the investigation, or the question, was it Russia's fault or was it not?
The evidence is pointing more to the direction that it was some kind of a on-air accident. Daniel arrives to the town indeed, and there's a church. He goes in, mass already came and went. Next is in the morning. The young girl, Eliza, presumes that he is working at the sawmill, but Daniel insists that he doesn't, claims he's a priest. Shows the priest collar and cassock. Eliza then tries to introduce Daniel to the town vicar. So Daniel tries to escape unnoticed and doesn't work. From there on in, he keeps playing the part and meets the father in his house, Father Wojciech Gołąb. He's testing Daniel, asking all these questions like pilgrimage from parish to parish. You've been ordained recently? From which seminary? But he's lucky to choose a seminary that the father didn't attend to.
Yeah, I'm not completely certain about that. The common consensus between with the audiences of the film seems to be that Daniel manages to lie his way through these questionings. But I'm not completely sure about that. I kind of from the characters I kind of got the reading that, like, for example, here the vicar actually does caught Daniel on a lie and does realize that he's not who he claims to be, but just doesn't press on the matter, just lets the lie slide. And I kind of felt that was something that many of the characters were doing throughout the film.
You raise a good point. Probably he was just trying to get out of the situation for a while, take a little break, go somewhere. We find out that this father has also other weaknesses, so to say. Like he asks, did you sometimes manage to escape? Well, he's trying to level with Daniel, that I'm the same as you, something like this. Offers also Queen's liquor, and they shortly touch on the tragedy that happened in the town, but he doesn't yet explain what it is about. And now there's also the Lydia, the sexton, in the corner, just looking, the older lady, keeping an eye on the two. And they discuss, and the priest offers him a bed for the night. There's the shopping for cigarettes, and kids are looking to be disapproving towards the new young priest. And we have the board that we return to several times throughout the film, people praying around the picture board. And Daniel goes back to his room, and then Father Tomasz tries to call. Daniel cancels the call. Interestingly, this is the only shown situation where they try to contact him via phone. And after that, they are apparently doing a pretty lazy job in trying to locate Daniel, because there could be places where you could look for him.
Yeah, nobody really seems to put on any effort to locate Daniel and see where he's going. When Daniel finally gets caught up on his lie and his cover is blown, that also happens simply, well, in the end, simply through happenstance, simply because one of his friends, air quotation marks, from the juvenile correctional facility just happens to come into the same town and happens to recognize Daniel and eventually rats him out, and that's when the priest and basically those people who should be looking after Daniel, checking out where he has disappeared all of a sudden, why he hasn't shown up on the goddamn sawmill. That's the moment when they finally show up and actually take some kind of action in the film.
Yeah, true. But regarding these bad habits of the father, now we get to the scene where in the morning they're trying to lift father back on his bed because he has fallen, apparently as in some kind of a drunken accident. Could be any kind of accident, but the message that is given to the audience is that definitely the guy was drunk. Lida the sexton says he doesn't drink though. Well, there is the moment where the father says that he doesn't want to drink with Daniel because it's unhealthy for him, but maybe the father is weak. Daniel agrees to do the confession session on the father's behalf, and here we go back to the church. The crowd is a bit hesitant to go inside to the church before the priest. It seems that there are some, let's say, stuck-up habits here that could need some upgrades, as Daniel does. There's a lot of this laconic humor here. He reads a confession guide online, and an old lady who hits her son comes to confess, talks about cigarette smoking, then concludes that take your son biking. This is the solution.
Yeah, well, obviously, whatever they have tried previously hasn't worked. And obviously, hitting your son in the head for cigarette smoking isn't working also.
Yeah, maybe they should just instead grab a bunch of weed, smoke it together, forget about it all.
Well, that could be the healthier alternative.
Yeah. Talking with the priest, Father is opening up about his mortal sin, and Father asks Daniel to replace him for only a couple of days, and gets his new room as Vicar is away. But it's a less comfortable lodging than where the Vicar would normally stay. And here we got to the morning again. So he makes an etiquette mistake immediately. He is starting up the ceremony, but the music is about to kick in first. Basically, this is all copied lines from Father Tomasz. Calls himself as dirt as compared to Jesus, which seems to upset some of the crowd. Kind of, let's say, unorthodox situations like this pop up, while Lydia looks quite pleased eventually with the Mass. She kind of goes back and forth, suspicious, relieved.
Sita, she essentially she is the embodiment of the stuck-up ways of the village.
Yeah.
And through her character, you kind of see the back and forth that the village takes emotionally as they slowly accept Daniel's kind of more radical teachings and embrace the route that in the end helps them to achieve kind of a emotional wholeness or an emotional healing. But of course there is going to be the whole, well, it sounds nice, but this is the way we have done things in our village for the last 20 years. So we are not going to accept the new ways, even though the new ways also appear pretty damn tempting and at times even better than how we have done things in the past. This is basically the whole kind of a concept that goes on inside Lydia and are expressed to the audience through her character.
Yeah, let's stop here for a second. We actually saw this actress already in the podcast in the Name Of episode, the Imia, where she played Adam's sister.
I completely missed that.
Yeah, I couldn't remember that all. I just was thinking that this is a rather familiar face. Aleksandra Konieczna. She has won the Polish Film Award twice for The Last Family from 2016 and A Cat with a Dog from 2018. Yes, she is suspicious of Daniel, but by the end, not so suspicious of Daniel, really. Forgives and lets go. It's about forgiving, the kind of a big arc of the film, I would say.
Yeah, the overall arc is about facing the past and forgiving others, and through forgiveness learning a way to move forward from whatever that is that happened in your past.
Suppose most people who go through challenging relationships, like if you have had a boyfriend or a girlfriend and then you have to let them go or they let you go, I think most people would like to suppress those memories that you shared together.
Well, painful memories altogether.
Yeah.
And with painful, at times, also the bittersweet ones.
I suppose I've tried to always find a different pathway here, because it's something that happened, it's your history, it's also something that made you who you are through those experiences. I don't feel that there is a benefit of simply forgetting it, because you don't forget it anyway. In my case, I actually try to go through a hell of a lot of that stuff and even embrace the great times that were shared. Just understand what happened and move on, which is what they do in this film. I think you should touch the uncomfortable topics to move on.
Yeah, some of them do, not all of them. And those who don't do it kind of in the end get eaten up by the situation. This is something that plays out through the character of Bonus, who starts the film with an axe to grind with Daniel over his dead brother and never actually lets that one go. And at the end, then the film finally ends up with a fight between Bonus and Daniel, where Bonus gets his goddamn head caved in.
Yeah. I believe it's Eliza who is by the memorial board, and Daniel comes to say hi, but she runs away from Daniel without showing her face.
Yeah, I took it that the mystery figure at the memorial board would have been the wife of the driver of the other car, the person that basically the whole village anonymously blames for the accident.
Yeah, that's probably it. Here we get some of these challenging situations regarding religion. Once again, there's the quote, "God planned to kill 7 people," she asks, and as the conversation is turning to certain Cuba, Sławek's picture is missing from the board.
They visit Cuba's grave because Sławek hasn't been allowed to be buried at the town cemetery, because the whole town blames Sławek for the accident.
Correcto. Eliza smokes, cries, says, "Kurva, kurva, kurva." Everybody has some bad habits going on. And there's a nightly board gathering. Daniel holds a speech and says that what God did was unfair, cruel, stupid even. People are raising their eyebrows a bit. "We don't understand why you did that. We are furious." Though that would kind of backfire immediately, but somehow it doesn't. Morning Mass. There are themes such as how easy it is to lose faith. And a quote regarding the baby. "Just take a look. That is a miracle. This is the kingdom of heaven on earth, the one we are reading so much about in the gospel. It's not up there, distant in time and space. It's right here, right now." He gets applauded. Sexton doesn't look too impressed though, but then claps anyway. And throws holy water on himself. Now this Father Goamp calls and says that he has to be away a little bit longer for some electrical stimulation of his neck. And Daniel is not really happy about it, but then stays longer. Cut to Techno Daniel. This is a very modern approach. Listens to techno and does biceps, cooks, and somebody knocks on the door. Daniel is now to see a sick woman, a dying old lady, and holds her hand. Not very convincingly, then says that you will not die. And she dies. The film kind of suggests that he is sitting there for hours and hours and hours as the sun is already rising.
Could be also something that he actually does, seeing how that might be maybe the second time in Daniel's life when he experiences the moment of death and someone passing.
Yeah, it's quite a powerful scene and kind of ode to forgiving.
It does propose quite good question about what is the role of the priest in the community that he sees over. What is he actually there to do? When you think about priests, you typically the first image is just someone who stands in front of the audience in the church and quotes the Bible, and that's that. But in the end, in the priesthood, there are a hell of a lot of other aspects. But the priest is also looked upon as someone who is the emotional guide and also the source of practical wisdom within his or her community. That's something that plays out with Daniel in the memorial board scenes where Daniel's kind of unorthodox messages, the prayers that he prays in front of the board, are, even though they are somewhat shocking because they outright comfort God and even accuses God, but they are something that is in tone with the emotions of the villagers. That feeling of anger and that questioning of what actually is God's plan. And that's something that priest actually is supposed to do within his community. He's also someone who is expected to have answer on those moments, like to explain what is the God's plan in any given tragedy. Why did God allow this to happen? And in the same way as we now see in the deathbed scene, in here the priest's role is to be someone who is by your side, comforting you on the moment of your death, and is someone who witnesses your death, so that you wouldn't have to quote-unquote die alone. And you can actually ask exactly how fair that is towards the priest. Like, do you have the right to demand that the priest has to be there and has to take upon himself the emotional shoulder of seeing you die?
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting how Daniel is there to course correct the approach of the city towards this incident, and it still kind of starts to unravel and dig into the whole thing by kind of being selfish and maybe perhaps even overtly curious and kind of exceeding his authority, you could say, in situations where he's really dancing on the line where this is a good thing, whether he should keep out of the situation because he indeed doesn't have all the facts when he starts the investigation, might just do more damage than he should. Also challenges the goddamn mayor of the town.
Yeah, I don't know if he's exceeding his authority in the matter. He most definitely he is on the line, and you are correct that in the film Daniel's actions play out for the better, and they do help the town to recover emotionally. But you are right that Daniel's actions could have taken another turn, and they may have made the whole situation much more worse for the townspeople. But that's still something that the priest essentially is expected to do. Priests often are looked upon as a source of an emotional and practical guidance in hardships and around questions where you yourself doesn't have the answers to. In that sense, when Daniel here plays a certain type of emotional detective, trying to uncover what has happened and trying to take part in somehow course correcting the town. That is very much what the priest is supposed to do, and by doing that, Daniel actually is exercising what is expected of him, and he is correctly exercising his authority in the matter.
It is rumored that there will be a sequel to the film, which will go through another village where the people are very concerned about this current plague that is happening, and they are bombarding the priest about the questions about COVID-19 and how long is it going to still play out. And well, no, but I can imagine easily that this is something of a real life scenario, where people are overtaxing their poor priests with these questions. Because it's quite biblical situation, isn't
Most
it?
likely. Yeah, and like with everything that kind of sucks in your life, if you are in faith, you can very easily ask, what the hell is God doing? What is the great plan in this case?
Yeah, I kind of love to see that. It looks like kind of all countries of all religions are still respecting the virus to an extent that they are shutting down mosques. And I was expecting that, they would take a little bit more time at least in the more conservative Muslim communities to shut down the doors, but they did that pretty quick.
Yeah, when it comes to pandemias, there is kind of a funny discourse that goes on with religious communities and basically the rest of the world or the scientific community. Scientific, when things are good, when the status quo is intact, scientific communities often are under attack from the more extremely religious front. In West, we see this how Christianity often comforts science, comforts things like vaccination and vaccines and others and such. But then again, whenever a global health crisis like COVID-19 or SARS or any other pandemia hits the fan, all of a sudden then the voices are being raised in mass to ask and demand the scientific community to come up with a solution, a new vaccination or some kind of a medicine that will fix the situation.
Yeah, except during little debacles such as the Black Death, people were not really trying to self-isolate to their homes. On the contrary, they would go to the churches to pray for
Well,
this to go.
Black Death, the time period all together was pretty funny back in the day.
Very funny. But
Yeah, like people had lost and had to re-find small things like personal hygiene. Of course, this is something that didn't really play out during the Black Death, and everybody just expected that God will solve the fucking plague back in those days. But we are now talking about the more modern, more civilized societies of today.
yeah. Yeah, so she dies on at least her earthly edition, and Eliza and her friend, they're sitting on the bench, and Lydia notices Eliza smoking. That's what I got here, because she bangs the door, which suggests emotions like anger. And the girls run to the memorial board where Daniel is on fire. Okay. Inhale, exhale, and shouting, letting out all of that anger and emotions, the same stuff that was in the juvie. One goes a little bit extreme there, like, you whore! While Eliza is overlooking. I don't know, and at this situation, like, new priest comes to my town and having all these unorthodox techniques for the people, I would probably be like, oh my god. But Eliza looks like she appreciates this. Back to Techno Daniel with bike. It's kind of a questionable whose bike it actually is, but there's a bike. Seems that he's taking care of it. Might be my favorite shot, Techno Daniel. Yeah. Valkiewicz, the mayor, comes to shake hands. Valkiewicz says he owns the sawmill. This is a bit of a kind of a side story here about the sawmill. But all in all, the intention here is to get Daniel essentially back into trouble to get the guy back to the sawmill so that he can get in contact back with Stincher, that guy.
I don't know if the mayor was doing that on purpose or if that was just a nasty accident that unfortunately befell on Daniel.
Oh, wow.
Because
you are into these conspiracy theories.
Well, in the end, the mayor really like in this scene. What mayor is asking, he's asking Daniel, who he believes is the town priest for the moment, to come and bless the new side building of his sawmill operation, and that's something that is not completely unheard of, especially in smaller religious communities.
Not at all, and it's very common in Poland. You see pictures of priests going to bless the fucking McDonald's, so I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah. So on that regard, I can see that this could just be, honest to God, favor that the mayor is asking from Daniel, and not so much an attempt to get Daniel somehow busted.
Or maybe the mayor is working for the juvie. This is some kind of a sick game.
He very much could also be doing that, because the mayor is directly actually benefiting from the juvie, since he's... basically, as far as I understood, most, if not all, of his workforce comes from the juvie. And it is, in the end of the film, Daniel remarks that it would be Pincher that rats him out to the authorities. And Pincher's reaction in face of the accusations really does kind of paint him in the bad light. That out of the way, it's never really made clear who exactly actually uncovers that Daniel isn't really a priest, and who is the person or the persons that contact the authorities.
Yeah, well, we see Pincher in the cafeteria near the end of the film before the bonus fight.
We do, and that's what I was referring to when I said that that his reaction doesn't paint him in the good light. But there is a possibility that someone else might have also contacted maybe the juvie, maybe the priest who is a personal friend of the mayor, or maybe the cops, and ask them to look up on Daniel, or look up on the new priest in the town. Most definitely, there are numerous people within the town who react to Daniel and Daniel's and the way how Daniel operates, in the way that it's very easy to see that any one of those people would try to get Daniel into trouble. The mayor outright threatens Daniel with ramifications if Daniel goes against his wishes and doesn't do what the mayor demands. So in that way, there really is more than one character who would have an axe to grind with Daniel, and who could make the act of either ratting Daniel out or complaining about Daniel to the proper authorities or his superiors.
Ship bar, or what essentially apparently is some kind of a bar in the real location of Tabaszowa in Małopolskie Voivodeship in Poland, relatively close to the main filming location town. This ship bar at the lake where we now go to. Daniel wants to act casual with the group there. They're talking about sex. There's this discussion about this dead Maciek, the porno king, who also died in the accident. And some of them accuse Maciek from beyond the grave for taking the opposite lane while drunk. Of course, they don't know what really happened. He threatened to kill some people, and the drunkenness is the proposed reason why the vicar didn't want the photo of him on the memorial board. Eliza didn't go to the funeral of his brother somehow. And then we go to whole techno mode on the boat, techno boat. They visit Kuba's grave. It's revealed that the widow's husband was the driver from the other car, and the widow has completely withdrawn from society. So Daniel tries to go talk to the widow and then gets this friendly "fuck off" as a response. And "you whore" to Kurvo is written on the foundation stone of the building. Then there's a discussion in the mayor's car about the new wing, and the mayor asks, actually kind of orders to let the whole incident go, and wants to have some kind of a humility. And in Daniel's mind, he can kind of do what the hell he ever pleases. "You may have power, but I'm the one on the right. You may be right, but I'm the one who has power." Opening ceremony. Daniel kind of immediately takes matters into his hands and gives revenge for this mayor as he puts everybody on their knees in this muddy area for the short prayer about greed, which of course is the reference for the whole situation in the town. Inside the sawmill, Daniel notices that the big bully with the tattoo on his neck is there. Daniel panic backs actually, but then decides to stay anyway. In garage, we see the video of Kuba. Daniel knows that the regular tests never show any drugs in the blood, and Eliza is kind of surprised about the knowledge level in this field of the priest. They go back to the widow, and now they get in. We go through all the letters that have been sent to her regarding Sławek and the widow. Sławek had been apparently sober for 4 years, but later she contradicts himself as she tells that was not really the situation that night. The vicar promises to bury Sławek once things settle down. Burial urn is in the house with a modest little shrine. Once again praying at the memorial. Beautiful cinematography throughout the film. Pincher comes to confess to the confession booth and now is extorting Daniel for 5,000 zlotys. If he doesn't pay up, then there's the risk that Daniel will go back to the juvie and Bonus is there to beat him up. Weird start for the mass, says this whole "I'm a murderer." Then that's the kind of important part in my thoughts. But yeah, that could be the step to something more extreme. And I quote, "Love someone despite their guilt, no matter what the guilt is." That's the tricky part. Say, if I had killed someone, I would be probably fine with it if there would be no loving thoughts from my family towards me. There's the little party time outside, and Eliza sings the Across the Lake song as our rockstar priest jumps on the stage and informs that the money collected today will be spent entirely on the burial of Sławek Kobielski. Nobody seems to be too happy about that. Now there's the other confession of Pincher tells to Daniel that he's getting beating in the juvie and also wants to kind of get out. Shockingly indeed, nobody has still found Daniel or Pincher. Once again, it's back to the picture memorial where the townspeople don't agree with the burial at all and the use of their money for this. So Eliza and Daniel are sharing the letters they've sent to the widow. And there is one of these towns guys who stops Daniel on the road and then kind of headbangs the guy to the ground. Now back at the apartment, Eliza wants to stay at Daniel's quarters. They share a kiss and there's sex under iconography. Quite iconic. And things get kind of heated. Not in a sexy or a fight kind of way, but the garage shack is on fire. Now police gets involved. Eliza makes an excuse about the ID of Daniel. She's smart to play that card, but the lie is still really weak about the whole washing machine eating up the ID and the wallet.
Yeah, more than that, the problem for Daniel here is that one of the two cops that show up at the scene is actually the same cop that Daniel met in the bus, who told him to put out his cigarette in the start of the film. So this is the familiar faces reappearing in Daniel's life and kind of the moment when his lie starts to run out.
Okay, so the same guy. Nicely observed. So it's not the toy police after all. The mayor is playing along, asking how to report the incident. It depends on Daniel how it's going to go down, of course. And this is the moment where the shit needs to be faced. As widow Eva, Lydia, Daniel and the mayor are around the table to solve this conflict once and for all. So the mayor agrees that the reasonable compromise should be reached. that the Sławek's funeral should happen, but in return his photo should be hanged on the board. And Daniel strongly articulates that he should be buried there. Lydia claims he was a murderer. Daniel raises his voice, which you kinda maybe shouldn't do. And Daniel accidentally blurts out the state in which the victims were. Eliza insists that they were sober, and Lydia wishes the vicar would return so that this madness would end, but Eva reveals privately to Daniel that she did have an argument with his son Sławek. She threw her out and said he'd kill himself if she'd not let her in, and she did nothing. So yeah, she didn't mention anything about alcohol, but there was an argument which could have led to this accident.
Yeah, the note to take for our listeners on the subject matter is that, and who caused the crash and how much fault is based upon anyone, it's never actually solved in the film. The film plays the whole crash as kind of a mystery element, like in your typical detective story, but it never actually reaches any kind of a conclusion where any one of the characters would in the end figure out that no, it was this person's fault.
Yeah, it plays kind of exactly as this Smolensk air disaster. As far as I know, nobody really got to know. And in a similar way, this film is clearly here to tell something, that you should just let it go. There's the funeral of Sławek finally, and they are walking past the mayor's house. Daniel invites everyone to a farewell mass, but it turns out that the Father Tomasz is in the crowd, and then meets privately with Daniel and tells Daniel to pack his things. And Daniel asks if Pincher was the one who ratted him out. Juvie priest now wants to take Daniel to Curia to see the bishop. Eliza can see what's going on. Juvie priest takes a look at all the pictures where Daniel is with the townspeople. Seems like he has been there for a very long time, or a lot of things have happened in a very short amount of time. Daniel escapes via the window, of course, and there's some smacking now back in the back room of the church because Tomasz follows Daniel there, and Daniel swears that no one else than Pincher knew that he was here. Of course, he can't really know that, but from his perspective, that's how it is. And the Juvie priest proceeds to set it up so that Daniel's holidays are over and he has to leave, and he can never tell anyone about this whole experience. Now, of course, Daniel thinks that this is something he deems once again unfair and something to be set right. So he goes in front of the church stage and shows his tattooed and bruised body. And now everybody knows, and there's nothing that Tomasz can do about it. While Daniel walks out of the church, Lydia is crying, gets very emotional, and looks like she's really impressed about everything that he has done. Says, God bless you. So that's her arc, kinda completed.
Kinda, there is anymore only tying up the loose end between Lydia and the widow.
Yeah, well, we never gonna get there.
Well, we do get when the widow finally is allowed get into the church. Like that's meant to be the culmination of that arc. The town and Lydia finally forgive the widow and welcome her back into the community.
She was there as a crowd?
She shows up in the final church scene after this one. Like when we have the small short montage of things that happen. That's the moment when the widow finally comes to the church. She stays or doesn't sit down for quite some time. They makes eye contact with Lydia. Lydia, after some time, nods her head to the widow, and that's the mark that yes, the widow can enter the church and take a seat.
But it's back to the Juvie. And Pincher says they're not friends, and Daniel is not able to sit next to him. Daniel says he sold him, as we discussed, and then Daniel gets to know that you're in for a slam tomorrow. So, quite interestingly, Daniel protests and ignores the prayer in the canteen. Just keeps on dining. So he is past a certain amount of bullshit. He just seems to live by his principles as well as he can, and set right what he sees as wrong. The vicar has returned. This is slightly intercut with the juvie scenes. A lie is spread about a boy who cut himself in the shed. Maybe that happened, that probably did, so they are able to buy time and set up this bonus versus Daniel round 1 fight. And Daniel seems to win this one. Gets heavily beaten to the head, but runs away as the sirens go berserk.
Yeah, it's clear that Daniel wins the fight. What happens after that is it's kind of left obscure.
Yeah.
It almost looks like basically all the other juvies gang up on now beaten bones and set the bastard on fire.
Oh, that would warm my very Christian heart. No, but it's very open-ended because the film ends here.
It ends, and you are not shown what the fuck actually is going on.
Yeah. This left you a little bit in this stage of, okay, that's it.
Yeah. Roll credits.
But as we stated out, this is going the full circle without really completing everything that was included in the circle. But anyway, more than likely he found out that there was nothing to learn in being a priest. And him being sent back to the juvie means that there are miracle shortcuts or no one up there to save anyone.
I don't know, I would argue that Daniel actually learns a hell of a lot while being a priest.
Yeah, it could also be that he learned some life values, as I said, but it's kind of a dog-eat-dog world out there. It's every man for themselves, and even though you managed to be in this priesthood, you were once again put back to where you were coming from. And
but that's not really any kind of a fault on the side of the church. Like that,
No.
that was inevitable for Daniel, kind of from the day one.
Yeah,
It's even made clear for Daniel.
well, you can read it in a way that this is something that Daniel doesn't deserve, the priesthood, or is it something that you just didn't happen to get because life is a collection of random occurrences?
Well, I would say more than that, the reason why Daniel can't really get priesthood is because life also is taking responsibility and having to deal with your past mistakes. Daniel has made a mistake. Killing a person is a goddamn mistake. Pretty royal one also. And that's the reason why Daniel can't become a priest, because the church doesn't take a murderer amidst their ranks. Or at least they are not willing to do that in Daniel's case. Or that's at least what the juvie priest tells him.
But they sure are willing to give other positions in the church. Not just the priesthood, but everything else is on the table.
Well, yeah.
Did he really kill a guy?
Well, Daniel's bully makes the case that he did. And Daniel himself half confesses. He states out in front of the whole crowd that he's a murderer. Of course, after that he spins it the way that I've killed people in my mind. But taken with the police accusations towards Daniel, I read it as such. Yeah, Daniel has killed Bonus's brother at some point.
Well, there it is, as open-ended as it is. I do believe just overall that Daniel learned a lot of valuable lessons, but I don't know how it is in the end of the film. Has he grown more connected towards the church, or has he grown some distance towards the church, or is it just the juvie church and the priest that he feels animosity towards, so trying to take himself away from those situations?
Yeah, that's hard to say because the film is way too open-ended.
Yeah.
But I don't see the ending in the way that Daniel would have grown terribly distant from the church either.
Yeah, no. But the church kind of turned its back on him.
I don't see that. Like sure, that the church didn't accept his fake priesthood. But then again, why would it?
Because he set a lot of things straight here as well.
He did, but then again, what does that measure up to? Like, are you simply because you did a good thing, are you automatically then allowed an official seal of an approval? Should church change its rules simply because Daniel made a good thing in the town?
Absolutely. That's the American story arc that should happen right now.
This is a Polish film, so...
Oh, yeah, there's that. Let's talk about the deleted scenes. There's a few on the Blu-ray. There's a Tartak scene. Well, Tartak, which means sawmill scene. And not sure where this scene belongs exactly, but there's a scene where Daniel goes to a small sawmill and outside, and Pincher is there alone. And they give each other some good smacking. And finally, Daniel is the underdog and runs away from the situation. That's it. There's a second deleted scene, the Kościele at the church, where this is somewhere in the beginning of the film, I guess, where Daniel is observing the mass of priests in the church, and they retreat to the back room with Lydia, and she laughs shyly at something that the priest says. There's no subtitles, so I'm not going to say more. Business and premiere. So this premiered last year, 2019, Venice Film Festival. And at Venice Days, the film won the Europa Cinemas Label Award and the Edipo Re-Inclusion Award, selected as the Polish entry for the Best International Film, as said, and 92nd Academy Awards, and made the final nomination. Got very positive reviews, mostly around the 4-star out of 5 mark. I think the film could have pushed some things more strongly, maybe building some more backstory, maybe trying to tie some of the loose ends a little bit more. There's nothing wrong with leaving it open-ended, but it was for a hell of a open-ended indeed.
I don't know. I didn't get that feeling myself.
But what defines then a good deed? He did plenty of good deeds, but that was not enough to save him and stay in the fake priesthood. There's a lot of great themes. How can we believe blindly like this? And one reviewer said that, quote, "This makes a compelling case that if people feel heard, trust and compassion can easily follow." And the same review stated that this is a movie about dreams and deceit, and that it preaches without being preachy. Quote, "By the time the movie decides to come full circle, it's setting up a climatic shot that's a 100-watt jolt. It also somehow makes perfect sense. Salvation isn't the final destination. It's a journey." End quote. I just thought that the ending was more about the earthliness of our situation in the film. It's not so much about the religion for me, it's about the themes that are around the religion. All the very humane things that connect us. But you can read what you want. Favorite performance, Henrik?
That would go to Bartosz Bielenia, who plays Daniel. Easily the strongest performance of the film.
Yeah, that's what most people say. There was something incredibly charismatic also about Zdzisław Wardejn's performance, who was playing Father Tomasz. But Bartosz Bielenia it is. Favorite shot? Like I said, the cinematography is quite solid. It's pleasureful to see how smoothly the focus point between the shot and the cuts happen. It's very simple but detailed. The background stays in a pretty golden cut and then stays animated even in the background when it's out of focus. But with that said, I would choose something like this. The favorite shot is when the Lydia sits in the church and turns her head slightly to shift her focus to something happening around the entrance of the church. And there the background is out of focus, so I don't have a time code, nothing mind-blowing in any way. It's just something that got stuck in my mind. So
Yeah, I take the same shot.
yeah. Well, favorite scene?
Would be everybody kneeling in the mud during the opening of the sawmill's extension.
Yeah. Well, I'm a very visually oriented person. Well, I guess everybody kind of is, really. But with that, I would gravitate towards the ship scene. Kind of like the location. Favorite line?
Would go to the mayor of the film. You might be right, but I'm the one who has power. As that's something how the situations really are in your everyday life.
Mine would be this that I mentioned. Just take a look. That is a miracle. This is the kingdom of heaven and earth. The one we are reading so much about in the gospel. It's not up there, distant in time and space. It's right here, right now. No ale spójrzcie, to jest cud, to jest królestwo niebieskie na ziemi, o którym tyle czytamy w Ewangelii. I nigdzie jest tam, kiedyś, tam, tylko tu i teraz. Favorite kill?
Bonus, who gets his rotting corpse set on fire.
Well, somehow I missed that part in the movie, so I will just go with the old lady. Sorry for the entire nation of Poland for that one, but there's not much where to choose from. Well, random confusing. Did you ever want to disappear, Henrik, and start over with a new life and identity and maybe take a cosplay role a bit like Daniel?
More times than I can actually count.
Yeah, it's not uncommon at all for people to just disappear and go away. I don't know, maybe not to make a new identity, but just to start a life anew. What drew you out?
Nothing really.
Yeah, nothing. But no, perhaps there could have been more emotion in places, maybe during the masses. It's hard to say. I don't really have any criticisms. But what drew you in?
Would be Bielenia's performance.
Yeah. For me, it's the visual side. It's beautifully shot. Everything fits together like pieces of a pretty puzzle. And yeah, great performances. But what would you change in the film? How would you improve the film in the Scissors of Sacrilege section?
I don't have that much to change or fix with the film. Something I felt that I may have done a bit differently. I may have played out the mystery aspect of the car crash more. Make the element or the feeling of mystery and the feeling of solving quote unquote the case kind of a more tangible throughout the film. But that's kind of a minor note from my end. There's no big drastic changes from my part.
On my part, each time I end the film, I've seen it now twice, I'm looking for more closure for Daniel's character. But concurrently, I understand why they did it like that, and I can appreciate this ending. And in this way, it also kind of seals the deal. But if not Daniel, there is a lot of characters that you could have played around with still. But 3 adjectives to describe the film.
Mine are sad, moody, and quiet.
Okay. Attractive, thoughtful, open-ended. Did you look at your watch?
Nope.
Henrik, would you recommend Boże Ciało?
I, on my part, most definitely would recommend the film. I do feel that it is one of the better films made about Christianity, in the sense that this is more about questions and not so much about answers nor feelings, like how it feels to be a priest. The film more tries to ask a questions what is expected of or from a priest, and or more clearly what is demanded from the priest, and are those demands are they okay? Can you demand so much from a person? It's also in my opinion, it's pretty good depiction of faith in the sense that it does look at how faith might operate within a community and what faith might mean to a person, what losing a faith can mean to someone, and how easy it can be to lose that faith. And on top of that, even if you are not so interested about the philosophical and theological questions, and you wouldn't want to check the film because of those, on top of that, the film itself, it's pretty easy watch. There are a lot of different genres playing out. It's part drama, it's part mystery, it's even part whodunit. So there's a lot to gain from this film, and I do feel that it is a movie that if you watch it, you won't have a dull time.
I felt it's a movie that works for everybody in the family. The religious, the non-religious, somebody who is kind of in the middle. There's something to say for everybody and leaves so many things open or things to think about that it works and somehow manages to make me emotional and engaged with the tragedies and concerns, even if I'm not a believer at all. And there's something very human in it that way. Everyone is trying to overcome the hate and anger and all these negative emotions, and by the end I think they mostly do overcome them, and with that said, I wish that the people of Poland could try to do the same regarding the real national tragedy. I mean, it's your tragedy, very much yours, but it's okay to look for answers always, but maybe let go of the hate and the fear. You really know you're watching Boże Ciało when?
Seeing how this is kind of the enlightened individual film for priests, I would say that every priest who is stuck in some bumfuck nowhere feels that they are watching the film.
You really know you're watching Corpus Christi when a film tackling with religious themes makes you connect emotionally with the film, and the feelings aren't even hatred. I'm up for a trip to the shooting location. I'd have to do that sometime. Many places to visit, thanks to this podcast.
You are soon running out of time when it comes to Poland.
Yeah, well, I can. Yeah, that might be a problem.
You can't, because once you leave, they want to allow you to re-enter.
Oh God. Okay. Would it be time to throw away our lab coats? Maybe try to sell them as something that the priest would wear.
Maybe it would be time for that. Finally, as a great relief to our listeners. Yeah, the episode is once again ending.
But Henrik, what is our next film?
I don't know. Is it once again something international?
Mm-hmm. Let's go hunting, Henrik. It's time to hunt. In God's year 2020. As we revisit the parasite star Choi Woo-shik and travel back to South Korea that we all love very much in this podcast.
That might be the second newest film that we have ever tackled on the podcast.
Yeah, we haven't yet managed to touch on a film that was released on the same year, I think, that we're doing an episode.
Well, we did that with Halloween.
Oh, yes.
Something.
Yeah, one of those many Halloweens. All right, yeah, this is going to be an exciting thriller for our listeners, I hope.
Finally a film that the buggers can actually see.
Finally a film that the buggers are able to actually see and are probably willing to see, as we touch on something that is kind of a more mainstream in the area of international cinema.
We truly are becoming sellouts.
And this
First we take money and now we are tackling with mainstream.
Yeah, but look at the situation. We are able to...
We can fucking end the podcast now. We have achieved everything you can achieve as a podcast host.
Yeah, but look at the possibilities. We can actually provide a direct link not only to our episode, but to the film if you have a Netflix subscription. But yeah.
Haven't you taken a note from Daniel from the movie Corpus Christi. At this point when you achieved everything, there's nothing more to go from except downhill and getting caught.
No. This is Daniel leaving behind his goddamn religions and going on a hunt. The spiritual sequel to this episode. So
I'm guessing film, religion, and Daniel doesn't work like you say they were.
I'm trying.
This is like the misrepresentation of the umpteenth level going on here.
I'm trying to make bridges the best I can here. So just suck it up for some Korean cinema next time. And in the meantime, and in the between timers, you can find us on the places that I have mentioned. We're on socialistic media, and we have a website to add to the misery of heavy internet. Don't forget to leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts if you use it, and leave us 5 stars.
or knowing the listener feedback that we to get, please just don't leave a rating.
Yeah. Do it on your own website. Something.
Leave a rating on some other film podcast.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. It's good to look at one of these newer flicks every once in a while. And next week, join us for some action-packed hunt, which will probably get your pulse racing quite a bit. We'll see about that. Or is it just the case that it's Henrik going to be hunting this film and shutting it down? See you next week.
Until then. Until then.
No.
Ja katkaisen nauhoitus se.